The next session is going to be introduced by Anshu Agarwal. Anshu is an IIT Roorkee alum. She is very active in giving back to the IIT community. She helped organize the campus mixer today, so I saw a lot of people connecting with each other, taking photos, coming up with cheers, making up some noise. That's really amazing. That's what people come here for. She has many accolades to her name, but what I really want you to know is she's the general partner at Converge VC, which is an early-stage B2B tech serverless cloud startup that got acquired by DigitalOcean. She has 5 startups, 5 startup journeys, and all of those 5 startups got acquired by large public companies. So she's built quite a reputation in the Bay Area. She's the ex-CEO and co-founder of Nimbella. And with that, I would like to ask Anshu to come up on stage and introduce the next session.
Thank you, Swapnil. My guest today is the founder and CEO of a company that every developer knows. And how many are developers here, or how many deal with developers? I think it's almost everybody. If you think API, you think Postman. And Postman's API platform has 30 million developer base today, which is practically 100% market share and 100% mind share. And having started a developer-first company myself, I long admired Postman and also envied Postman. So it gives me a great pleasure to welcome Abhinav Asthana on stage.
Thanks, Anshu. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhinav, for joining us. And I want to talk about the early stages. When people look at a company, they look at the present, that, oh, wow, it's such a big company. But I want to go back to the start. And I want to say, how did you get started? What was the original idea? Was the original idea you thought that would be this big?
Well, first, thanks for having me here. And I'm glad glad to see people back in the room. Earlier, it was supposed to be my job, but the raffle did the trick. So thank you for that. Going back to how Postman came to be, I think a bunch of people were asking me the same question when I got here. And the simple answer is that, as a developer, I had spent a lot of time working with APIs, and I found them to be a very painful process. Mm-hmm. My first encounter with APIs more formally was Yahoo in its good old days back in Bangalore in 2009. And I was working in a team that basically was putting this giant system together, and there was really nothing in place in terms of tooling or infrastructure, and I found it to be kind of surprising considering how advanced Yahoo systems were. I carried that experience through to my next startup, which I founded just after college, and there we were just a bunch of 4 developers working together, and I saw the same challenge again. And kind of what's relevant in the AI era today, at that time, the iPhone and the Android ecosystems were taking off, and we had to basically build APIs to serve all of these different platforms. And I put 2 and 2 together. I was like, I could see backend systems were basically built on APIs, and you had to build all these front-end systems with APIs. So eventually I'm spending more and more time with APIs, but working with them kind of sucks. So as a hacker, that kind of became a side project of mine. Okay. So I had a day job as a startup CEO and a kind of night job as a hacker on Postman. And I put the product out there, and it just became very successful in the developer community, and kind of things went on from there. So really, it kind of came from my personal pain point of, I just don't want to deal with this.
Okay, wow. But no startup is a straight line success. Okay, so when did you realize that you had a product market fit? Because there are a lot of founders in the audience who, and I've struggled with that too. So it's good to understand from somebody who saw the product market fit happening unfold in front of their eyes. So when did you realize, and what changes did you make?
Yeah, so I think one thing I would mention is that as we have continued evolving as a product, and as you continue innovating, product market fit is a continuum. Maybe we'll get through some of the other questions and cover that. But at least the first inkling for me was I put the product out, and one of my, I think, first feature requests came from an engineer in Google. And I was like, that's kind of pretty crazy that I'm sitting back in Bangalore and, folks in the Bay Area are using the product. And it really was, kind of, you sense like this pull from who you have built the product for. So oftentimes, as founders, we worry about like go to market, like my web page needs to be looking better. Maybe if I have better marketing people, maybe if I have better, sales people, maybe that problem will kind of go away. But I think for me, like in those initial phases, after having done many failed products before, it was really seeing that pull, like somebody's really excited about using this, about actually incorporating this in a day-to-day workflow, even in ways that I had not kind of imagined them to be. And soon we crossed about 500,000 users. We launched on the Chrome Web Store back then. So maybe one kind of, especially as there are so many more platforms today, seeing how much adoption you're getting on like mobile platforms or any platform that you sell your software on, seeing reviews, seeing just like how fast it was growing, was that sense. I also used to hang out a lot with developer communities like Stack Overflow kind of back then. All of that is feeding ChatGPT now.
Yeah.
But I used to answer questions around APIs. I used to interact with our community, and you could see that pull that people are genuinely excited about the product going forward. So that was kind of like the first free product that we launched. After that, as we became a company, the challenge was actually for me to kind of recognize, is there a real company here? And for that, you need a monetizable product. And I tried basically all sorts of business models, whether it was like open source to paid version or like add-ons or a bunch of other things. But really, I spent time with companies whose developers were using the product and really kind of, in some ways co-developed the product with them. And when people were interested in seeing that, okay, this is what we would eventually kind of pay for, in parallel, we were just kind of building it. And pretty much like in the first month, we had, without any solicitation, like our first few customers just kind of come in. Then we knew, like, when we got our first paid customer, we knew we were in business and we just had to go.
Okay, wow. So since you mentioned monetization, and monetization is a topic that investors love, and now that I moved to the dark side, I like it too, but the developers hate. So how was it? Did you get pushback from the free developers that, you're charging me for features that were free before, or you're not rolling more free features out? What did you have to do?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to API development or API collaboration, the thing we realized, like the core insight behind Postman was that when you're building an API, you're building it for someone else to use, and they are inherently kind of collaborative in nature. Like if you have built an API and nobody uses it, it's kind of a pretty sad API.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, this is, there is one aspect of this problem, which is a developer problem, and we have to keep making the product better and better and better. So they are really kind of, getting value out of that on that one dimension.
Okay.
But there is a business problem here when it comes to developers collaborating together with APIs, or they're in, multiple teams, or an organization is really thinking about systematizing their API development practices. And that's a business problem. So we kind of have kept that as a guiding star, that if we are adding value to a developer's workflow, we would try to keep it as free as possible so that, they just love Postman, and that's how we have kind of gotten this developer community. But when we cross that boundary into us solving a business problem, that's where we have to monetize. And actually, even developers actually love this model. They get to use a great product which they can bring to their organizations that can prove value to their workflow without having them, stuff being sold to. And CTOs, heads of engineering, love this model because the product that now they're going to buy is already being adopted by developers.
Okay.
So that was the second insight we had, that actually people want to pay for software that developers would adopt, and that's just extremely hard to do. Even the stuff that you would buy as enterprise software, you cannot force it on developers.
That's correct.
So that combination of that really kind of worked for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm getting here is collaboration maybe compliance and governance. These are the capabilities that the companies are willing to pay or the developers are willing to pay for.
Yeah, at a high level. Like, of course, as the platform has evolved, we have added many more capabilities that, kind of larger teams and, bigger enterprises require. But that's kind of pretty much the genesis of where we started.
Okay. Quite a few founders, aspirants here are all experimenting with a product-led growth model. I mean, PLG is great, okay? But there are a lot of challenges. So what advice do you have for the people in the audience here? And are you is PLG still the main go-to-market model, or are you in a sales-led model now?
Yeah, so I think I'll answer the latter one first, and then kind of go to the, what we observed, and maybe, the audience can take some pointers away. So, we have both PLG and sales go-to-market motions, and eventually we realized that it kind of really does not matter so much. As you become larger as a company, you become a customer-centric company. While our approach to entering the developer's mind in an enterprise might be PLG, eventually we also have a sales organization that we layered on top. And in some cases, even large enterprises want to just like swipe their cards online and just buy the product.
Okay.
So really over time, the distinction kind of blurs a bit.
Okay.
But integrating these go-to-market motions is going to be like its whole different talk altogether.
Okay.
But when we started, we very much, what is now known as a PLG model. When we did start selling online, actually there was no reference point, there was no terminology, and everybody thought we were kind of crazy because, all the VCs were like, where's your enterprise sales team and are you going to sell? Yeah. But thankfully Atlassian, went public. They talked about the PLG model. We had the successes of Slack and GitHub. And I think what people could see at that time was that the way you deliver software, has really changed, and buyers do have some authority to go just, buy the product on their own, especially when it comes to small and, mid-sized organizations. So our observations, which might be helpful to the audience here, is that first of all, you cannot force a PLG model on a product that is not suited for the model. You have to deliver a unit of value that, as the faster you can deliver the unit of value, like we measure it in like minutes, sometimes even seconds. So like we look at, can the developer make an API call in a few seconds within Postman? And anything that kind of gets in the way is like distraction, and then we have to kind of layer it on. But oftentimes, the first hurdle founders run into is that the product just takes too much time to learn, too much time to install, and those things are not a fit for the PLG model. The second bit, what I would look at is basically how much volume do you have? So the model works when you have hundreds of thousands of people coming in, preferably like every day or every week. You might ramp to it. One initial way in which we started this was we looked at a cohort of a few people coming in, and we just engineer out the problems in the funnel. So if people are getting stuck somewhere, you have to solve it with product. You cannot solve it with people. And if you do it long enough, then eventually you kind of have a fast ramp. And that's when you kind of turn on the tap and you get more users in. Over time, the model becomes more complex, which I said is a whole different talk.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was very insightful. Now going back to funding, your first round was $1 million from Nexus. And what 2 or 3 aspects of the company did you highlight to get that round? Okay, and that's first part of the question. The second part of the question is, your last round was $225 million at $5.6 billion valuation. What 2 or 3 aspects of the company you highlight at that time, and how long did it take to complete the round, both times?
I don't know how much I can share on how much time
Whatever
it
you
took the
can
rounds.
share, yes, yeah.
So, I've been pretty fortunate with being able to raise money because the product and the community, kind of did most of the talking for us. So, in the first round with Nexus, they kind of saw the adoption out there. Their portfolio companies, were using Postman. And, I really kind of did not have to do much except negotiate, the round itself. And I actually like that model of fundraising.
Okay.
So I could go back to basically building the product and creating more value for our customers versus spending time on fundraising. And actually, we rolled that into a Series A $7 million round, which we kind of did not raise for 5 years. We raised them eventually in 2019. So in the initial fundraise, the main thing people could see was that we just had so much traction, and people just loved the product, even back then. What I think was the question was, how will you monetize, and how will this become like a viable company? Tip for founders is, as you probably know, Anshu, that if VCs are competing for your round, it's much more likely that's going to get done.
Yeah.
So you can't have, can't be just dating with one person in a round. So that helped. So kind of having the founding team well set up. I did have my co-founders, Ankit and Abhijit, who were all developers. We knew the problem space really well. That's what we highlighted. We highlighted the product. We highlighted the traction, and the round happened. Now, fast forward to Series D. So we raised a 50 million B, then we raised a 150 million C, and then a 225 million D. I think the one background for that was that the fundraising climate was pretty good. And one advice I heard from Slack's CEO and founder back then was, if the money is coming to you on good terms and it gives you a lengthy runway, you should just take the money. And the money, was coming to us. And I think actually the harder thing was how much to raise and when to say no. We kind of didn't want to really expand the round too much or just raise too much from the beginning. And the way I thought about it was, will this help us validate the next problem statement the company has? So for us, going from A to B was really like, is the PLG funnel working? From B to C, it was PLG to PLG scale, if you may. Like we just have repeatable PLG scale. And between C and D, we are kind of looking at, is there an enterprise motion here? So at that point in time, you're looking for much more repeatability in your customer base, more diversity of customer bases. Do we have the engineering talent, and can we have the go-to-market talent? A big part of that was me moving to the Bay Area. So pretty much after I raised the Series A round, I moved here, and the goal was to create a category leading company, which I believed at that time could only be done in the Bay Area. So all of those factors played in raising the D round.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. But this is an AI conference, and I think I will be banished if I did not have AI in my question. So how have you incorporated AI into your product for the new generation of developers who don't want to code?
Yeah, so so Postman's mission actually is to create net new developers in the world. As you mentioned, 30 million developers is a lot, and actually that number has been growing, and compounding, but we still have a long way to go. And our mission is to create 100 million, connected developers who actually build software. So we believe AI is a net accelerant in that mission. I think the first place where we looked at AI was really incorporating, kind of AI-based workflows within Postman. So we have an offering called Postbot that, we are seeing enterprises deploy at scale. It makes every single task that you do with Postman just faster. So whether you're doing API design, documentation, testing, now you have the power of AI behind it. And what I've seen is that once people kind of get used to it, they just are hooked on. So I'm pretty excited about Postbot. Going forward, we are also looking at how can we simplify development for people who will just be building in this AI native world. So we have an offering called Flows. That's kind of a no-code canvas that allows you to basically bring together all the APIs that are in the world, and Postman has the largest collection of public APIs on the planet. We have your internal APIs that you can build with, and we also have partner APIs that you might have access to. So you can kind of bring them together on Flows and use the power of AI to build and envision the next application you might be thinking about. So we think that the next generation of developers will really be born in this world, and we hope we are at the center of it.
So where will be in the number of developers in 2 years?
In two years is hard to predict, but we have we just crossed by the time we were doing this talk, we are 35 million.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
5 million increase.
So 5 million increase, So now number of developers is growing pretty fast.
Okay.
And I'm excited that AI will, bring a lot of people into the fold.
Okay. I don't know if we have time for a question from an audience. One question? Okay. So we'll take one question from the audience.
Hey, Abhinav, as someone who's focusing on a phenomenal developer experience, thank you so much for being here, right? I have a two-part question. One is like early stage, one is a bit later, right? As you kind of started off with this whole engineer-first mentality, and you were kind of growing up, right? Was there any kind of thought leadership or anything that kind of really impressed you that, hey, here is a non-engineering point of view I need to be mindful of as a founder, as I scale up, right? Yeah. And the second part of my question is you talked about, PLG then being layered by a sales organization, right?
Yeah.
Did you find that sales and product had a push and pull? How do you still manage to have a great, DevX experience, right?
Yeah, both are great questions. So I think for me as a CEO and kind of looking at the organization, when you just purely have that engineering-centric mindset, sometimes you can, be, you kind of forget as a company that, there are people on the other end, whether they're inside your company or there are your customers. So we had to kind of develop our EQ a lot. And that we, had to really spread through culture or, through care for the customer, all of those attributes. As an example, while we, were very much focused on developer experience, we, all three founders for like 5 years did support on Zendesk. We were like the biggest ticket solvers on Zendesk until we hired like our first sales rep, first support rep. And when you actually interact with people and you develop like why they're coming to your product, why they're coming to your company, you are able to kind of bring together that very engineering mindset with people who have empathy. And when you build in like other functions like HR, finance, marketing, you definitely need like more of that. So we really had to kind of learn that as a company. I think on the second part, building, meshing product-led and sales-led together, I think we, kind of are still in that journey, but over time what I've realized is that, product needs to see what enterprise customers care about, like firsthand. Like IT, we heard from the panel before, right? Like IT concerns, security concerns, privacy concerns are all important, and you cannot just hope that, hey, I have a great product, so people should use it. So we really had to put product managers in the shoes of the sales organization to see it. And for sales reps, we have to have them see that it's really when developers love the product, that's when we get a chance to be in the room. If developers don't love the product, then you will not be invited in. So as this gets systematized, we have, as this has gotten more systematized, we have seen much more healthy output from the organization.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abhinav. So Abhinav will stay here for some time. So if you have any questions, you can ask him on the side of the stage.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.